We're building a model railroad from scratch, and we have started in the last episodes with a starter set, namely the ICE2 starter set. The starter set actually contains everything you need. There's the mobile station as a central control unit, we have a large track oval with it and 2 turnouts, and of course the nice looking ICE2 train, which is also inside the starter set. Here it is, I have already unpacked, and we have shown in the last episode what the major differences are between the old metal tracks, the M track, and the new C track from Märklin. This one is the plastic C track, if you see it here. It has a particularly high level driving safety. Also, what you can do, you can bend it at least a little, so if your track circle is not quite synchronous and the geometry is not 100% true, then there is a bit flexibility. But the most important factor is actually the driving safety. In the last videos, we have also shown how to digitize these turnouts, because you cannot only do it by hand using this little lever on the side, but you can also install an electric turnout mechanism on the back, like this one here. And we have also provided the whole thing with an installation turnout decoder. You can use that to control the system, respectively this turnout, with the mobile station. There is this button here on the side, that is the one with the white turnout symbol. When you press this button, then you can digitally work the turnout. These things are called a magnetic article, and the same thing also works with signals. We have already shown it how to install a small signal in one of the last episodes. And we have also shown that we can also switch the signal from red to green and green to red with the mobile station. You can also use 2 of them. We already shown that in the recent videos. So for example, 2 people can play at the same time. One person controls, for example, one of 40 possible trains, and the other person controls, for example, turnouts and signals. Or one person controls one train and the other person picks another train. So lots of possibilities. You can really get together here, play and have some fun. In this episode, we already made some progress. I've prepared something a bit before the show, because today it should be about the track planning and about landscaping and scenery construction. And of course, such a railed circle on the floor is nice, but it would be nicer, of course, if we could add a little bit of height. I've already prepared something here on my computer. There's something you can use for some assistance. If you would like to imagine your future railroad system, you can use a track planning software from Märklin. Track planning in 2D and also in 3D. It is available for the PC, you can download it, or you can buy it as a DVD or CD. You can install it and then you can use it to plan the railroad system of your dreams, sort of like planning it on a drawing board, with a big advantage that you can get a little more professional. You can plan overhead contact lines, for example the catenaries, where there should be or which cabling is necessary. If you want to rise from the ambitious beginner to the professional, that is certainly a very good idea. Otherwise, I really like the Märklin magazine as a sort of inspiration. Let's have a quick look, and if you do not have a subscription, you can still download the track plans from the Märklin website. There you can find some articles from the Märklin magazine that also can be downloaded here. And there is, for example, a huge list of track plans from the last years. So only looking at this collection, you should find a lot of inspiration there. And if you open one of the track plans, you can see what they look like. This one was also created with this software I just mentioned. And here we already seeing one of the bigger dream layouts here, with a concealed rail track underground. So for that you would need a bigger room. And here we have the exact plan into which rails we used. You can see that very nicely here. Here we can see a sketch from a smaller railroad system with a small train station here, with a platform, and so on and so forth. So here you can see different track plan layout inspirations, and depending on how much space you have for your model railroad, you can either choose a smaller track plan or of course a huge one for your model railroad room. I did something else and looked what else is available on the market from other manufacturers. There are so many different railroad railroad accessories manufacturers. And there is something from the company called Noch. They used to produce these finished systems in the old days. Maybe you still remember these plastic terrains with great mountains and these things. Those still exist, but there is something new from Noch, and we will take a look at now. That's the Easy Track construction set you see here. There are small plastic stamps with it, and there are cut-wood railroad routes that you just have to place on top. And that's exactly what I have now right in front of me. This is one of these railroad routes. They are of different lengths, and just like you draw or let draw a drag plan with such a software, you also have this railroad route plan with this Noch system. I can show you briefly, I hope you can see it. You can see which of these pieces must go where. It's exactly marked. So the 31 centimeters long route belongs down here, for example, and then there are these different numbers 4041, 014221, 5000. It's a little bit of a puzzle game. That are these plastic stamps. These pillars that we have here, and those also have these small numbers. And depending on how high this route should be, the more such little pieces you combine in different lengths together. They are exactly labeled inside and also enclosed in the right box. And then you just put them together here, and afterwards you just glue them together with a plastic glue. I'll demonstrate that right now. I'll just place a small amount of glue on the side here and a bit over there. That should actually be enough because the glue is very strong. Because right now I'm using a glue from Faller. You can easily combine different things. I'm gluing this as well. In the run-up to the video, all I did was to lay out the track plan, respectively the route plan, in front of me, as stated in the instructions. Now I'll glue some of these plastic parts firmly together. I've also marked there on the plate where the pillars should be fixed later on. Yesterday I already screwed tight some of these things. I have actually tried two different things. I screwed it with a screwdriver, that worked quite well, but if you didn't hold the plate quite tight while screwing, it was rather straining. So I decided to put down the screwdriver and to use my good friend here, the hot glue gun. That also worked great, of course. You can either choose to screw or to fix it with a glue. Both options work fine depending on how tight you want that to be or if it should last for eternity. I'll place these two here to make sure they are standing up straight. This will be my foundation later for my train station that we are building here. So go ahead, relax, and just watch me handicrafting and gluing this and that for a while. And also get some inspiration at the same time using the track plans from the Märklin magazine. Of course, maybe play around with the software and create your own. I was asked the other day if there is something for those who are using a Mac or a tablet and not a regular PC. I have found several track plan apps for the iPad, for example. You may look them up on the Apple App Store. But there's also a software for the Mac called Rail Model. Depending on what device you're using, there are different things from different manufacturers. On our Märklin YouTube channel, we promote the Märklin track plan software, of course. I have to say it is in fact pretty extensive, especially when it comes to planning the electronics. So that's done now, takes a few seconds, so you must be a little bit patient. So I told you already that if you have any questions about how to build a model train or model railroad, we will answer them in the YouTube comment section. If you're thinking to yourself, I'm at this point with my planning right now, I'm thinking about how do I do it, how big can a gradient be here, and so on, just write it down into the comments and we will answer it later. I have to add something on the topic of slope. I can show you briefly how steep the route can be going to the top. You have to imagine it that way. Generally speaking, you are talking of about 3% slope. 3% gradient means that within 1 meter it can go up 3 centimeters. That's what you see about here. Exactly 1 meter we have here along this meter. It should go up 3 centimeters. Well, It's made relatively gentle here, and if the slope is along a curve, of course, one has to calculate for the curve. But there are nice websites where you can have the curve slope calculated, in case you were not paying close attention to math in school. Just like me, for example. In school I was more the kind of person in math who was more interested in other things. I'm gluing around a bit on these roots. As I said, that's the easy track system that I'm using here right now with these pillars. And that's also available for track helix, for those who want to build a spiral leading upwards. As I said, you can also do that yourself, so there are other opportunities. A few years ago, I have seen a landscape made of a cardboard. It was built from really hard cardboard boxes, which are available from manufacturers like Bush. I can also highly recommend that. They have this kind of cardboard, these really hard card boxes called armored carton. I think you can simply cut into shape with a card knife yourself. So for those who want to build their own layout themselves, this is certainly a good idea. Now I'll need a little bit more space with the notebook. I'll put that aside for a moment and then you'll see what we're doing next. So I'll put it here for a moment so you can see what I planned yesterday. Before I start gluing everything together and then stick the wrong parts together in a hurry, here that would be the part or not. I'll place it on the top of that, check if that's being correct. I already had it prepared yesterday. This is my root at the front. I still have to glue these small parts on. This one should stick, this one does not. And here we have two more and there two as well. Then they come probably on here too. That's the same height exactly. And then they would have to be on here. It already sticks. There they are already in place. I'll glue them together right away. That's fine so far. And I place that here. So you can already see that's now a really relaxing job, what I'm doing here right now. Actually, it's ideal if you are two people and help each other out. Then one can lay out the tracks and the roots, while the other one can glue these pillars on. And then you can get this finished pretty quickly. It took me half an hour or maybe 1 hour yesterday to lay this out. It's a good idea to lay out the parts before the first time. It does take a little longer, and I, as I said, hadn't glued it yesterday because when it sticks, and I wanted to see first if I got it right. That's why I thought I'd do this together with you and we will look at this together. And if something is wrong, then you may laugh a little at me in the YouTube comments saying, oh yes, here he did it wrong again. One is still missing back here, so if we now have the system as a skeleton structure, then of course the next subject would be the planning. Where does which house go? We are relatively flexible here with the system. I'll show it to you on the computer back here. There are also 2 or 3 inspirations by Noch about what this could look later on. You are still very flexible here. For example, at the front, I would rather have the whole thing as a bridge or a stream or river should flow through here. Or do I want a gas station right here, a modern shopping mall, or whatever, maybe a grocery store, or should a farm be built right here? So that's completely fine. There you are completely flexible, so you can still play with that very, very nicely. That means you don't have to know for sure today what I put where, and rather get a bit more inspiration about which houses I want to build. And yes, it's already fun seeing this shell construction and to see how the tracks will run. You also want to make sure the system is running correctly later on. The trains should be able to really get started. So I have to display that again and glue it afterwards. I have to see if that's the right size. So I look again at the plan, which part is this? That's the same track plan I have laid out before. And where do I have the route plan? There it is, 36 centimeters. 31 centimeter and 36 centimeter, then it fits right away. That is already tight. Then you can put this on its place and then glue it with the hot glue gun. We preheat that up a bit. The hot glue gun is always the best friend of the model railroad professional and for the model railroad beginners as well. I would say in this situation, a lot is not enough. You can use it to balance and compensate if the screwdriver isn't just enough, or the nails don't fit quite right. The same is true for the tracks. There are some people who glue the rails later on using the hot glue gun. Others screw them firmly to the ground using the track bolts. You can see there are different approaches. Some also use a cork foundation, for example. With that you can minimize the noise of the tracks. Of course, when you screw tight or hot glue after, then you have more vibrations on the other hand. That will turn up the noise again. In this planing stadium, you can still try out a lot of ideas, at least a little bit. You can work with different materials, see what they sound like, and when we have everything firmly mounted, go ahead and just have the rails laid out. Alright, this takes a few seconds, and in the meanwhile I could look at the plan, because the nice thing about this easy track system that I'm using for my project right now is that the track plan is very similar to my starter set that I have unpacked yesterday. I'll bring the starter set over here for a second. It also contained a small track plan. Let's have a quick look at that one. There are my tracks in there. We will need them in just a moment. We will use them all in no time. But if I have another look at the track planning, on which side was it again? I believe it's right here on the first page. Yes, there you can see the standard oval. That means I have my two curved turnouts at the side here. And I have a lot of these 18.8 centimeters long and 17.2 centimeters long tracks. They are all included. And if I have a look at the track plan here from this pre-made track, then I see here a lot of tracks that I also need. Seems that I also need the 17.2s on the side, 1 and 2. There we have all of these 130s. Those are the curved rails we have here. And I have one curved turnout here and a second curved turnout. So those are some parts I can already use from the starter set. You can already work quite well with the starter set. And the nice thing is that for the ICE, I have already organized a couple of tracks here. I got it from the store yesterday. And there is for the ICE here also an extension set. That means some of the tracks that I need are already inside the extension set. That comes quite handy because when you want the train to be a little longer, or if, for example, you want the dining car with it, then you can just unpack all of this very nicely. And it contains the most of the important tracks you need for this track system as well. A few single tracks and a few special tracks that are a bit smaller, you have to buy them additionally. Now, Hot Glue, how about you? Well, he needs a few more seconds. I'll take a quick look at the clock. How much time do we have? For how long have we been filming? So. Okay, yes. We still have a little bit of time. I have organized something else here, a few more tracks. These are a little longer. We can, of course, combine several shorter tracks, but there is also a couple of longer tracks by Märklin. That is, for example, this track that is almost 30 centimeters long. No, not quite. It's 22.9 centimeters long. That's the one we have here. This track, for example, comes very handy if you don't need a lot of short tracks. The longer the tracks are, the better is the driving ability, of course, because there are less gaps between the tracks. I'll demonstrate that in a second. We'll lay out these long tracks right here at the front. I have my right turnouts here. I've already digitized them. I did that after our last few episodes. So what I also organized, these small pieces here, they are very practical. These are distribution strips. And these distribution strip, I'll unpack one briefly, are used for the red or for the brown wire. Then you can connect them with these plugs. That's actually just like it used to be with a model railroad from the past. You might still know that from your childhood or from the last generations. There hasn't changed so much. and we just place them somewhere in the middle. That's where they'll go. The central power supply from the track connector box, which is included here, will not be connected directly to the track, like it is actually prescribed in the instructions. So if we look at the instructions, then it says here that you can get this track connector box attached easily to the rails somewhere and then connect it here, for example. That's wonderful for a carpet railroad. So I will just cut through this wire and connect 2 plugs to it. And there I have a great advantage that I can build a star-shaped or ring-shaped so-called ring circuit or star circuit. That means I can feed in electricity every now and then. For the track here in front, on both sides, here above and below, also on this side above and below, and again at the end of the railroad system above and below, so that I always have a perfect power supply, because in the whole process with the resistance of the track material, maybe a little performance is lost on the way. But I want my ICE running everywhere with the same speed. I don't want it to weaken, and since the locomotives also have heavier engines, the models are heavier nowadays. The topic slope is quite an important topic today, like how steep is still okay for the train. And on the other side, we will investigate the question how much power output should be on the system. If you play with several models that you have, then it is of course great when you have lots of electricity and current everywhere on the system. Alright, what does it look like with the hot glue? I think we're ready now to do some gluing. Now, you can either watch me or go straight to the next episode. Maybe a few tips along the way. So now it fits perfectly. I've already marked this yesterday, and now I just place some hot glue on it with the hot glue gun and glue this on there. So one more thing again here. You don't even need much glue. It's already sticking really well. Then we will do that right here too, where I have marked that, just a little bit of glue. You may already know, attention, it can get hot. But that's always the case with the hot glue gun. You will learn that relatively quickly. If, for example, things are relatively close to your finger, then you'll notice it quickly. That's the hot glue gun you're working with. That's why I placed a little bit of glue here on the plate and shortly afterwards. So now I could do, let's leave the hot glue gun on standby. Now I could glue that there on the side with the plastic glue. I'll do that now since I'm already holding it in my hand. Just don't use too much glue, or else the glue will stick and trickle. And it doesn't have to be like this. Attention here, this is important. So take a look. This here is to set the right inclination later on. And now take it down there quickly, since I've already done it wrong. So this way around, so that we will have set the inclination correctly. In this case, it's not so bad, because this is a straight stretch. But especially for the drive-ups and the departures, it is important that you get that right way around. Otherwise, it will be a bit of a roller coaster. So that's looking good. That already sticks firmly, this one too. Let's place this over there then on the side of those railroad routes. Usually the glue already holds everything quite firm, so you do not necessarily have to nail and glue. But keeping Murphy's Law in mind, if you plan someday to move the railroad, or maybe you want to put it somewhere else, everything falls apart unless you really secure it. So plan accordingly. I bet that the tough superstructure will add a lot of stability later on. We will also build a meadow embankment using some sort of chicken wire or fly screen. We can also work with plaster and go over with the whole structure with it. You can also use paper mache, which you can make yourself using a paste mixture. There are endless possibilities. I'll try to keep it simple as possible, and I also want you to show what products you could buy at a specialized model railroad dealer and what else you could use. So it should be very easy for you. Do not use too much glue at the same time, otherwise the glue will dry quickly. That looks good. I marked it underneath so that I can see where it has to go. there will be the smallest stretch here, so at here and there, and then it sticks here as well. And then the last piece, and the last piece at least here at the front. Better remove the hot glue gun, otherwise I will be glued to this as well. There is no glue here so far, and no here either. That will hold. I will need some room here. Better close the glue, otherwise it will dry out quickly. By the way, if these little Faller glue containers dry out at the top, thus blocking everything, I found a nice tool the other day that helped me with that. I found a needle to pierce right through it. Where it is, I have to check where it is. It's great. I found that the other day at an online retailer. It is very convenient that you can pierce through this. Then you don't have to always buy a new glue. So now we already have the main area here, and now I could decide, for example, whether I want to glue this on right now, since I can still reach it very easily, or if I use this space around here to build this ring circuit. Meaning that I'll do all the electronics first. I won't do this now, because if I can reach over there now easily, or maybe not so good later, it also means that later I will having problems with maintenance issues. That's why I'm thinking about leaving this area free for now and then build the supply areas here at the front at the side, where it might be easier to reach. Or possibly even at the back of the model railroad system right here, so that I might build a small hole in the tunnel, which has the size of my two hands, that I can still reach the central power supply. I could also use other decoders, for example. And if so, where should we install it? It is important that we can reach these parts as easily as possible, and so I'm still thinking about where to build the ring circuit. The less I can reach it now, the worse it will be later on. I would say I continue to finish the last few things here, and in the next episode we will talk about building up the tracks and where to lay out the ring circuit. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, and until then. And as I said, ask your questions now, write them down in the comments, and then we will answer them together with the team at Märklin. So have fun handcrafting and see each other in the next episode.